Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way.
Morning.
Morning, Bird.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Oh, it's glorious here. Glorious.
Good.
It's exactly as you'd expect it to be, which is rather nice. It's gone from... I had to take a duvet off my bed.
Oh, excellent news. And hot water bottles gone?
Yeah, no, we're still hanging on to the hot water bottles. Cause
yeah, you like the comfort. You've got used to them, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. Touch of luxury they are. Never thought I'd hear myself say that. But
no, it's what I would regard as a touch of luxury back in 1967 at boarding school. It's not really my 2017 touch of luxury.
Of course. So, how's things in London?
Bright, sunny. I haven't checked the temperature. I can see yours is 15. I suspect we're probably 9 to 11 at this time of morning.
Yeah. So how's your week been?
As you will hear, ups and downs. I'll start with an up. Sat up all night on Sunday for one of my favourite nights of the year when I'm in the mood for it, and that's the Oscars. Because I'd seen all of the 9 best films and all of the nominated performances, I had a lot of skin in the deal and I was excited. And I had my 2-week free subscription to Sky's app, which is called Now TV. And I lay in bed in my gym jams and I revelled in it from the red carpet onwards. And as you saw, one of my major takeaways from it was I'm going to need a little hairband tiara thing.
I know. I can't wait to see you in it.
Well, and then I lost interest overnight and I thought, oh no, don't be ridiculous, you've got short hair. And then I went back and looked at those 3 women that you asked me to send the pictures of, and 2 out of the 3 of them had short hair. So really we're thinking of it more as a little sort of glittery hairband as much as anything. To
go with the shoes and the bag. Perfect.
Yes, and of course I'm buying mine from Amazon, but theirs was $1.5 million worth of bling, I think.
Did you have a security guard follow them around?
Well, I think they do, don't they? I mean, actually, the hairbands are the least of it. It's the necklaces and the ear cuffs and the, diamonds. Lovely. Anyway, note to self. Next year, at the end of February, at least be in America, if not California, because it's quite a punishing thing where you stay up until 5:30 in the morning. Thank God I'm self-employed and I can have a lie-in the next morning. But I'm going to talk more about this later in our show today because there's more to be learned from this. But enough of my favourites one to make it worthwhile my being up. So there was a lot of yelling, yay, and punching the air at my end, which was good.
Cool. Okay. And what's the not so good? Or are you going
to? I'm going to tell you about those as the show rolls on.
Okay.
You tell me about your week.
Well, you'll like this. I've had a very, very spooky week.
Well, on Monday and Tuesday have been very quiet. Yesterday I had to go and look online to see how much your output was on Monday and Tuesday. Very quiet. What's going on?
Well, let's tell you, skip through the easy bits first. First of all, my daughter Phoebe had her first viral breakout video. She didn't know. She was away doing a photo shoot with my friend Peter. She was filming him making something gorgeous. Oh, Scotch eggs, that's right. And I looked at her latest video, which was her. I thought it was very funny. She didn't think it was particularly anything. And it was funny, after we'd been talking the week before about nothing setting the world on fire, and you've just got to keep trudging on. And she released this little video, which was shorter than usual, not as produced as usual, had her trying on one of these Korean sheet face masks, deep hydrating face mask or something. And anyway, she put it on. She couldn't work out what to do with it. And she said, I'm just going to put it on, then I'm going to read the instructions, which I thought was hilarious. So Cairncross, Sorry-Meekin family. And anyway, it was just funny because she was just talking through it. It's slipping down. She looked like Hannibal Lecter. And she came back to find that where her entire channel for the last 6 months to 8 months has only had about 6,000 views, this one video had 6,100 views in a day. And she's number 1 on Google if you search Kiyomi hydrating face mask. Her video is on page 1 of Google.
Okay, so the same poor connection we've had for the last 3 weeks. She's number one on Google if you search on what?
On the key phrase, which is Kiyomi hydrating face mask.
Yeah, never going to happen, is it, my end?
No, but these Korean face masks apparently are all the rage. I mean, I didn't know anything about them because I don't use them either. I use a bit of Olay or Clinique. But
yeah.
Anyway, so she was very excited because it only literally the day before we'd been having moan, much as I did on this podcast last week to you, about how, you slog away and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Well, on that day, she felt like she was getting somewhere, which was nice.
Yes.
So and then what else happened? I've been invited to Brisbane to speak. Neil Asher has invited me to go and stay in a Airbnb with him, and speak to his room full of people that he's rounded up in Brisbane.
When?
June sometime.
Okay.
So it does fit with my travel plans rather nicely, and I think he's going to front me the airfare as well. But I can't quite bring myself to decide to do that punishing flight. It's just horrendous. He says I can break it, and stay overnight somewhere. But I don't know about you, Judith. When I start a journey, I want to crack on with it. I don't want to pause it halfway through.
Yeah. Well, my brother and sister-in-law have just been to Australia and back. I don't think I'll ever go to Australia unless I'm in the lie-down £12,000 beds. It's just too far from the UK for me.
Yeah, and well, I think you could do it if you stopped off and made a 2 or 3 day stop.
No, I've been to those places where you stop off. I've been to all of those places: Singapore, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, Tokyo. I've been to all of those places, and they're absolutely far enough for me.
Right. Anyway, so I'm still deliberating on that. But here's where the spooky bit starts to happen, right? I'm going to talk about what caused me to do this in the next bit, but I've been working through my book, Mindset, Marketing and Money, and taking out mini stories from it and creating meme quotes.
Oh, very nice memes. Very, very, very high quality, attractive memes, I thought.
Thank you very much, because I'm absolutely crap at graphic design. But in fact, I am cursing quite a lot, but I'm using Canva and it's making it bearable. But the thing it made me really do was fall back in love with the content. And it just made me realise that these little mini stories are just part of 5 or 6 stories each entrepreneur tells.
I told you last week, be in love with it.
Yeah, and anyway, so I did that, and then it was almost like the universe started stirring because I was marketing my book. And the next thing you know, I get an email from someone, a headhunter, offering me the opportunity to apply for a job of head of author marketing.
Oh, head of what marketing?
Author marketing.
Oh, head of author marketing. Nice.
Yeah, for a company called Book in a Box, which is based in Austin, Texas, which is a very cool place indeed. And I read the job description. It was a lovely job description. It was between 70 and 100K, which obviously isn't quite enough, but
do you have to be in Texas, or can you do it from anywhere?
Well, you can work remotely, but you do have to be based in Texas. So they want you to come in for meetings occasionally, but they've got a very Google-like complex.
I don't think you'd be allowed to be based in Texas, Nicola.
If they thought you were the only person for the job, they would be able to get.
That's quite a hard sell, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not interested, because I'm not interested in having a job and having to go to an office. It would just be horrendous. But it's nice to be asked anyway. Yeah,
I agree. Nice to be asked. One of my favourite expressions. Yeah.
So that made me think. Oh, okay. So perhaps there's something. Perhaps I'm marketing my own book. Perhaps I ought to dig out that database of all top best-selling authors and podcasters that we had made years ago when I did the TBSF podcast, which is where these interviews came from for the book. And I thought I could advertise to them my Facebook ads service, and I could create a lookalike audience from them to market my Facebook ads and funnel building service. Because I quite fancy just having a few nice clients to do that for, build the funnels for them and help them turn their content into digital products. So I would literally dug out the database, put it all together, and I'd literally just uploading it to Facebook, and I was waiting for it to populate. And I got an email from someone who is he does a book in a box service for UK people, and he's not very well known. He's not promoted it. It's all been word of mouth so far. His last 9 books he's released for people have gone to number 1.
Oh, funny enough, I think I saw him on Facebook yesterday, Book in a Box.
No, it's not his name of his company.
Oh, there is a company called Book in a Box, interestingly.
Yeah, that's the one in Austin, Texas.
Might be. I mean, no surprise if you've been looking at it, it would turn up in my timeline, though, is it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it is that one.
Yeah.
So he's got a book in a box type business, but he's only worked by referrals. His last 9 books he's released for people have been number ones in multiple countries.
Yeah.
And he's got a fantastic track record. He basically knows how to game the Amazon algorithm, the search engine algorithm, and get people into number one in their categories. So he'd helped me a little bit. And the reason I knew him was because I listened to his interview on Anthony Tilley's series of podcasts, and his story was the one that touched me most. I don't know if I ever mentioned him. He was an ex-property investor. And he's made a lot of money from property, but he's also lost everything several times through property.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of the beast because of the 18-year cycle. Yeah.
Exactly. And it actually moved me to tears listening to his story. And I thought, what an incredibly brave man he was. So I reached out to him and I just messaged him. I said, of all the interviews Anthony's done, I've really enjoyed yours the most so far. So we were sort of in desultory touch. And then... Right, so I won't tell you about what he was saying first. And then we went out for dinner the other night with, in fact, we didn't go out for dinner. We went out for a coffee down the village, ran into Stella, who's one of our neighbours. She said, I'm going to Melissa's for dinner. Do you want to come? We went, and there was a lady there who we'd had dinner with before called Stephanie, who isn't an author, an actual author. And we got talking about books and writing. And she says there's actually 2 writing groups in Stupa. There's a memoir writing group, and there's a normal writing group where they're quite critical, but the memoir writing group's a bit kinder. Should you be welcome to come along? And then I get back and this email from this guy saying, can I talk to you about Facebook advertising? Because I've never advertised my services, and I talked to him, and I'm not joking, Judith. He's got the whole product funnel ready to go. He just hasn't marketed any of it.
Brilliant. So he's an ideal Facebook ads client, is he?
Totally. Yeah, and a funnel building client. I could, he's got the products. All I would need to do is build the funnel and run the ads for him.
Okay, great.
So isn't that spooky? All these author-related things in one week.
Well, yes and no. I always say that the internet is both random and scientific.
Yeah, because
you could say that Phoebe 6100 is the scientific bit. Is she's plugged away. And where you put your energy is where results come from. They don't always come as fast as yours in the last week, but they come if you bend yourself to the rhinestone. And funnily enough, a client of mine wrote me an email yesterday which said, "You'll never guess what, out of the blue." And I said, "Look, they always say it's out of the blue. It's never out of the blue." And she said, "Oh, that sounds like a good blog post." I said, "I already wrote it in September 2014 and sent her a link to it. And I'm going to put it again in this week's newsletter. And your success this week has come out of the blue, i.e., only after you've been plugging away at it."
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm sure that making these memes rose my profile as a potential author marketer because I was marketing my own book.
Yes, I think that's true. But also no surprise. It's both random and scientific.
I take your point.
Yeah, and also it's so good for you to go through that experience and put yourself in the place of the people that you advise all of the time.
Yeah, it does. It's got a lot of integrity about it, hasn't it? Because
just go back and find another way.
Yeah. Because that's what I've been struggling with was finding my niche really, and I thought I'd found them, but then it turned out that it wasn't.
Actually, you fancied the authors before, and of course, what's brilliant about it is that you are one several times over.
Yeah. So they'd look at that and think, well, she must know what
well,
she's
also,
doing.
it's a good story, isn't it? Grade 3 at CSE O-level English or something like that?
Grade 3 CSE English, I had to pay for my own O-levels.
It's a good story.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for reminding me of that. It is, you're right. What's fueled your fire?
Well, 2 things. This is where the sadness comes into it a bit. It's odd that one would think that a sad thing would fuel your fire, but I'm going to tell you about one and then remind you of another. 2 ladies I met, both of them through the Money Gym, i.e. work that we've done together historically. First of all, I heard towards the end of last week that one of them had died aged 53, diagnosed with cancer in November and died in February. I'm not going to tell you the name of on the podcast. I know you know who it is, but the family are, just hanging it all together. And the loss of a dear friend. So what it always does is it makes you think, if we could be taken at any time, what would we do differently now in our daily lives? And the less you change, the more you already have, your ideal life. So, thanks to that lovely woman and all the good times and the laughter and the fun and the food and the generosity and the wonderfulness, and she always wanted me to help her with money. She earned extremely well. She could never save a bean, and now does it matter? She could never save a bean. Do you know what I mean? She was always travelling, always doing arty things, always texting us in the middle of the night to say she bumped into Meryl Streep. She was always doing, exciting, interesting things. She was loved by everybody. She saw the world. She was an author. She had much more in her life to do. She said that. But her life was taken from her with no notice in 3 months. And it just makes you think, how grateful you are that you knew a person like that, how grateful I am for my own health and longer life than hers. It makes you think bittersweet, happy, sad thoughts. And the other woman is Yvonne, who was one of our experts on our summit last year. I don't know if you've seen this week, you probably haven't had time, but she's uprooted herself and is changing her life all over again, just like she told us on that summit recording about how the lowest of the low, when the French lender was going to take her house away and she turned it into a B&B, and we both ended up in tears. Do you remember? Well, she's done it again. She's up sticks, she's left Champagne, she's left France, she's come home to the UK, she's going to do something completely different, she's got no money, she's starting again from the beginning. And I said, look, you've done this so many times, you've got this in you. That's inspiring, isn't it? That somebody who is not shackled by their fears, but does in their heart and soul what they know they've got to do anyway, however terrifying.
Well, you've just nicked my who or what's impressed.
Well, I had her in who or what's impressed, and I realised she got to come in what's fueled my fire. Well, we may discuss her again then, because, you'll have a different perspective on it. But, I met both of those women through the money gym, Nicola.
Yeah. And can I just say to our listeners, if you haven't taken a look at the Own It the Summit recordings yet, go to ownitthesummit.com. Yvonne's I think it probably did reduce us both to tears as she was telling her story. It was just, and she had a fantastic response from the people who were listening to it live free at the time, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
So we've got other stories to hear from her now, which is...
Well, you have. She's doing it again, and she's done it at least twice in her life. This is the third time. She can do it. It's in her DNA. I'm not in the least bit worried about her, but she's so plucky and so brave. And she's just like you. She reminds me of you. She's a fast-acting creator. Once she gets a bee in her bonnet, she just cracks on with it. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, that's Yvonne. And she did say on this, she'd thought about it for 7 years, but when the moment came, that was it. Stuff in the back of the car and through the tunnel faster than you can say knife.
There's a phrase, a Cockney phrase came to my mind there, but it slipped out.
So, what's fueled your fire?
What's fueled my fire has your comment last week, which is, it was just a passing comment in a lot of really good stuff that you gave me when I was talking about, setting the world on fire or not. And you said, believe in your stuff. If you genuinely believe your stuff is good, then it's your duty to share it as wide as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I just thought, she is absolutely right. I'm a shocker for creating things and moving immediately on to creating another thing without giving the things I've created a good chance of survival. And so it made me think, how can I bring the incredible content of these interviews in the book to a wider audience? And I just thought, how can I do it in a way that's fun for me? So I thought, I wonder if I could get some quotes out of it. I wonder if I'll just read through. And it seemed strange to make a meme with a quote without having a little story of how the quote came to be. So I've started putting them up on Instagram. And, just putting, because quite a lot of people say that with Instagram, it's really good if you have quite a lot of words with your picture as well. Yeah. I can't confirm or deny that. I can't say that I'm getting any more likes because of, having the story behind the meme. But, I'll report back when it's had enough time to mature, as it were. But it's really made me fall in love with the book again and made me really want to spin off, lots of content. And really give that content a good chance in the big wide world.
Good, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant bit of coaching by you, madam.
Oh, good. Now, I'm having very poor quality audio with you again, so I only heard about 50% of that, but I got the gist.
Okay, well, I'm very grateful. I'm hearing fantastic quality of audio today. So.
Well, you have been on the last two. It's always me on my end for some unknown reason. I don't know whether it's Zoom. It's between me and Zoom. I don't know. But anyway, just explaining to you and the listener. I'm so sorry for the listener. The audio quality on my end in last week's episode 120 was just abysmal. I would have turned off if it had been me, to be honest.
Well, it's fine today, so don't worry about that. It just concentrate on trying to concentrate and let me know if you need us to repeat anything.
Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah.
Would you like to hear about 18 proven ways to enjoy a successful location-independent business and the freedom to live wherever you like? Own It The Summit is a pack of 18 dynamite interview recordings with globally successful entrepreneurs, sharing their secrets of the real laptop lifestyle. We handpicked each of these people to interview to show you how to set yourself free to design your ideal lifestyle, whether working from home or travelling the world, while running a successful virtual business that you absolutely love. Just visit ownitthesummit.com and get your hands on these life-changing recordings today.
Tell me about Client Challenge of the Week.
Well, it's an interesting one, this one, because of the fact that we've been having challenges getting a Client Challenge of the Week. And I listened to a podcast last night. Oh, dear, I'm not sleeping very well out here, I must say. I listened to a podcast last night by Chris Barrow and Ashley Latter, which is called Two Reds Are Better Than One. And the reason they've called themselves that is because they both support Manchester United.
Indeed.
And they're both from up north, and they're down-to-earth guys. I know Ashley Latter. I've been on a couple of his sales courses. He does an ethical selling course, which is highly recommended. And Chris Barrow, obviously, I'm a long-term fan of his. And they're great friends, and they've known each other for a long, long time. And in fact, they actually interviewed Guy Levine on the last episode of their podcast, which is a corking episode if you want to hear about a young wonderkind who is now one of the most successful digital agency owners in the north. But yeah, this one was all about, they were saying, you know, they work a lot in the dental industry. You know, Chris does coach other people, but he mainly coaches dental principals. And Ashley largely works with helping dentists to sell, you know, to ethically sell treatment plans that the customer needs, the client needs, or the patient, or whatever they're called. But because dentists are traditionally very, very bad at not only selling, but running dental practices, because they're not entrepreneurs, they're technicians, in Michael Gerber's terms. Anyway, they were saying that how are we going to keep this podcast going? Because we don't want to be talking about dentistry every week, because it's boring.
Well, I think it has the potential to be boring. I don't think it is boring, do you?
No. So what they came up with was that they're just going to talk about what they're fascinated by every week, because Chris is endlessly fascinated by the numbers and the marketing and, you know, the entrepreneur side of running a dental practice. And Ashley is endlessly fascinated with the psychology of selling. So they've concluded they're just going to come, you know, to make a podcast and talk about what they're fascinated by each week. And I was thinking, Sarah and I are having this conversation as well, because I'm endlessly fascinated by business and the psychology of success and marketing, and especially internet marketing. And she's endlessly fascinated by health. I mean, she'll watch endless videos of people doing raw vegan food and talking about, you know, their health and cooking and things like that. And I would watch endless videos of Gary Vaynerchuk and Casey Neistat.
So are you suggesting that we should change this section to what are you endlessly fascinated about this week?
No, I'm still thinking we should try and find more client challenges of the week. But in those weeks when we don't actually have a client challenge, we could just talk about, you know, I don't know.
Indeed. Well, I suppose I'm still interested in business to the extent that my clients are, but I'm endlessly fascinated by money.
Well, how it works.
Well, just money. It doesn't really matter. All aspects of it. Who's making it, who's not, new ways to make it, the trouble that people are in that are making it, like Sir Philip Green. I don't know if you know Sir Philip Green. He was given a knighthood because he owned BHS. Then he sold British Home Stores off for £1 and ripped off the pension fund. He's been required to repay 353 million to the pension fund today. Yeah, you know, so that's a fascinating fact to me. You know, the things that people get away with, things that people don't get away with, the things that are viewed in a poor light by the establishment because, you know, the system requires us to remain in the matrix, all that kind of stuff. Money is what fascinates me, really. How it works. Well, how my clients struggle to make it because of the way we were all brought up.
It's interesting. One of the memes I shared from Rich Sheffrin said, I've come to recognise that for most people, the way they wound up being is not who they need to be to have the successful business they want to have, to be the successful entrepreneur they want to be, and have the life they want to have. But you can change that. And what he's saying there is that we wind up being a certain way psychologically and emotionally, and that most people, even my kids who've had really, I would say, not a perfect upbringing, but they certainly were loved every step of the way. And everyone says that the reason you don't succeed is because you've got a self-esteem issue, and it's only the people who overcome that do succeed. I think it's a human condition. Something happens to us in puberty where we all develop low self-esteem, and it's only the people who can get over that in some way that then go on to do good or great things. What do you think?
Because I'll buy that. I don't think it's the 100% blanket answer for everyone or everything. I think the listener and any one of your clients or mine might evaluate where they are on that scale 1 to 100, let's say, and that would be useful. So it would be more or less hobbling, I think, and it may for a lot of people who look like did, and vice versa.
I mean, say my internet right. Just to before I started putting out these memes, I thought, oh God, do I dare do this? Is everyone going to look at them and think, oh God, the graphic design's terrible? And then I realised it was all about the content. It didn't really matter.
No, I think they look good. Show me that picture again where you had them all lined up.
Well, it's not even about that. It's the fact that I didn't feel confident.
Yeah, they're glamorous. They're actually glamorous, Nicola. Because I tell you what's compelling about them. I'm not a visual person. I tell you what's compelling about them. They begin with a great high-quality photo of the person.
Yeah, they all supplied great photos.
And I'm interested in people, so that's why I would have noticed that. Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make here is not to get some lovely pats on the back about my graphic design. It's about the fact that I was, and I imagine a lot of people listening would think that I wasn't ever scared of anything or doing anything or not confident about it at all. But I actually felt quite unconfident about this, and Phoebe feels quite unconfident about her videos. She sent me one this week, a wedding video she did behind the scenes of a wedding photo shoot. And she said, oh, I'm not really feeling this. I'm not really very inspired. I think it looks really amateur. And when I saw it, I thought, bloody hell, this is really good.
Yeah.
As someone who's self-taught from just watching YouTube makeup videos, this is actually really bloody good. So it's interesting about being fascinated by thing, because I think if you become fascinated by something, that you spend enough hours studying it, reading about it, watching about it, and then that makes you an expert, doesn't it? Because you become more of an expert in that topic than the other people around you.
Well, that Venn diagram thing, we often see versions of it where there's 3 overlaps, 4 overlaps, 5 overlaps with the purple dot in the middle. It's one of the conversations I have with all of my new clients, which is, where's the sweet spot between, what you've done in your past career that gives you the cred, who you are in your life, and what you're endlessly fascinated about. So, for instance, if you start a business about, let's say, footballs, I'm not going to be able to sustain that business for the rest of my life or long enough for any client to pay me any money. Whereas if it's about, I already knew it was about money. When I was an accountant for 20 years and then started coaching small business people with an emphasis on money, it was going to be endlessly fascinating to me. So I was never going to want to stop exploring it, investigating it, writing about it, creating content about it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always looking with clients and potential clients for something that is going to sustain their interest long enough for them to become visible to their market. Because the problem with jumping ship endlessly, which is what the underconfidence, the creator, the person stuck in the ideas loop does, as you know, and I rant about this regularly on the podcast, is you're not in it long enough for anybody to catch on to what you're doing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that takes so much longer than everyone expects it was going to.
Well, it does. And I think it can sometimes take a while to find this thing. I mean, I'm calling it a thing because I'm trying to avoid all uses of words like, niche and things like that. But, we know Sarah's endlessly fascinated by the raw food and all of that because all the time I've known you and her, which is, 15 years, that's been her thing. And she comes back to it every time, doesn't she? And everything is business with you, and with me it's money. And it's kind of like the stick of rock, if we break us in half, what's inside? Mine says money.
Yeah, I got, because the money gym started because I suddenly realised that, other people knew how to do money and I didn't. And so that led me down the psychology of success sort of route, really.
Yeah.
Especially when the money gym had to close in 2010, because that's when my confidence was shot completely.
Yes.
And so I didn't know how I'd done the money gym. I didn't know how, it felt so effortless. I didn't know how I'd made it a success, especially when you guys came along and made it even more of a success. I didn't really know how I'd done it. So that's where the confidence thing, and that's where I got interested in success. But I started off interested in money because nobody seems to talk.
You started off interested in money because you wanted to make some, Nicola.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then keep it. And that's something we've identified as, just from talking endlessly, which you do when you're in a foreign country with one person and he knows you very well. You end up talking about all sorts of things. One of my things is that I could make big chunks of money, but hanging on to it is another matter.
Well, and that's something you've got in common with your new Facebook ads client. The property man that's lost all his money twice. It's not, and there you go, Philip Green lost 350 million, or you could say lost, but actually did the right thing with it, or was obliged to do the right thing with it. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's not immune to that.
No, you're right. So, yes.
Because there's market forces as well, don't forget.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what happened with the money gym,
wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely right. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So, the other thing is, there's Malcolm Gladwell's book, which is, Outliers?
Yes.
Talks about 10,000 hours. Phoebe said to me the other day, I said, look, these V-zines, do we want to keep doing them? She said, well, it's like my hobby now. I want to carry on because I really enjoy.
Only you could review whether we wanted to keep doing them after only 6. What a laugh you two are.
Well, it's quite a lot of work, Judith, especially for her.
Yeah, but isn't it too soon to know whether or not they're working?
Well, it's not about whether they're working or not. It's about, because, people do watch them. It's about whether we want to keep doing them, because I have to keep coming up with, interesting shots of Stupa, and she has to spend hours editing my ums and ahs out. But we were just trying to evaluate whether we wanted to carry on doing them. She said, well, it's my hobby now. All I want to do when I'm not at work and not asleep and not out with my friends is edit video. So she must be, cracking through her 10,000 hours in quite a good pace now.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to get my calculator out. Keep talking. 10,000 hours is a very long time, Nicola.
I think Malcolm Gladwell worked out that it was every evening and weekend for 10 years.
Well, yeah. If you look at it like, so for instance, when I read that book, I thought of, my expertise at doing people's accounts. And 10,000, if you do, say, 40 hours a week, that's 250 weeks divided by 48 weeks because we give ourselves a month off. It's 5 years. It's somewhere between 5 and...
Yeah, but that's working full-time, isn't it? Hello?
Yes, I lost you after full-time. Yes, it's somewhere between 5 and 10 years, even as a full-time.
Yeah, and then you've got, Jim Slater talks about this in his book, The Zulu Expert, where, I've probably said this on the podcast before, do stop me if you've heard it before, where if you go and study Zulus in your local library, you're going to swiftly become a Zulu expert among your circle of friends. And if you then go and study Zulus at the county library, you're swiftly going to become, probably the biggest Zulu expert in your town. And if you then go up to London and study Zulus in all the libraries and museums in London, you'll swiftly become the Zulu expert in your county. And then if you go and, South Africa and live on a kraal for a year and study Zulus actually in the wild, where they live, then you're going to become probably one of the UK's leading experts in Zulus. So he was making the point that the more time you spend studying one specific thing, the better and better you're going to get at it. And
that's why it behoves us to choose something that we're endlessly fascinated by.
Yeah, because otherwise you are just simply not going to put in the hours, are you?
I also think the other interesting thing is how it looks to other people. So we feel underconfident, let's say, but often that's not visible. And sometimes some people will say things like, "Oh, you've been so lucky," or I've always envied you because," or "you always look so X." It looks completely different to other people, to observers, how it feels on the inside. And actually, what I always do when they say things like that is turn it round to them and admire them for how it looks. It's the swan, isn't it? We all look like a swan, but underneath we're paddling like fury.
Interestingly, you just mentioned the word luck, which was going to be my next point, which was I was listening to a podcast with Dan Norris the other night. He was being interviewed by a girl called Carly, and she's got a podcast called Carlosophies. And she specialises in really, really lovely voice, actually, so really good to listen to. She specialises in interviewing entrepreneurs about their bad times and how they survived them and how they turned them around. And she was talking to Dan, and he was uncharacteristic. I mean, he's a fairly open bloke anyway, but she got quite a lot out of him that I've never heard him say before. You know, he's the guy who did 7 Day Startup and WP Curve, sold it to GoDaddy, started the brewery, that's going really well, 5 times author, etc., etc. He says that he thinks, looking back on it, he didn't do anything different, but the things that worked seemed to work effortlessly. They seem to have a life of their own. He thinks that luck is a large part of success, but he says, obviously, you have to be in the best position you can be so that when luck comes calling, you're ready to take advantage of it.
I totally agree with him. And I totally agree with him in all senses of that, which is sometimes, and this is one of the things in my life, when I was born, which was in 1955, it meant that I've had 2 recessions and you've only had 1, relatively speaking, because I was more advanced in my career because I'm that much older than you. So my business and my personal wealth was wiped out by the first one, and then pretty much by the second one as well. And many people have never been in business or old enough or affected by either of those. And now, by dint of my birth, my state pension is being delayed by 6 years. I'm one of these waspy women. Now, you could sit here and think, oh, poor me, 2 recessions and 6 years delay on my pension. They are nothing to do with me. They just came along and happened to me. And that's 3 examples of bad luck, you could say. But the examples of good luck are many and varied.
Yeah, and they definitely happen more to people who are optimistic and positive and out there.
Well, I think you demonstrate. You know that famous expression that's attributed to absolutely everybody about the harder I work, the luckier I get. You know, you sort of demonstrated that with the story you told us about. You know, after last week, I thought, right, well, I'll have another go. There you go. Well, as long as we keep having another go, it can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard another great expression, a surfing expression this week, which was that. It's all very well catching the wave, but you have to know how to ride it off.
Ride it, yeah, that's true, you do. And you're more likely to be able to ride a wave if you've got 10,000 hours of practice at surfing.
Yes, as James Franco is trying to...
You know, because I could probably catch one and then drown.
I wouldn't even be able to catch one.
Well, exactly. You know, luck would cause us to catch one and then we'd drown, so we don't know what to do with it.
And even if you just look at this whole living in Greece thing, I mean, since I came here for the first time in 1989, which is, well, it must be 25 years ago because Phoebe wasn't even a glint in anyone's eye then, or much less Nelson. And here I am, finally, after some really heavy ups and downs, getting my thing that I set my heart on 25 years ago. That wasn't exactly an instant attraction kind of thing, was it?
Well, you better enjoy it for as long as you can, because Brexit's going to mean you're going to have to leave.
Well, that's true. And also, I could drop dead at any minute. But at least
there are two jolly thoughts there.
No, I've got a jollier one, right?
Okay.
It's good being here because there's nobody to revive you. The nearest hospital is 45 minutes away, and there is only one ambulance in the entire peninsula. So if anything happens to you, you're going to drop dead.
Well, it's interesting you think that's a good thing, isn't it? I might think that was a bad thing.
No, I don't want to be revived anyway. Moving swiftly on.
It depends what you mean about revived, doesn't it? It means if you bang your head or, you know, whether you've got something terminal going on there.
Yeah, well, I might have to edit this bit out.
We already know, the listeners and I, that you won't do that, Nicola. But should you decide to, we're at 12:38.
Can I just say, Irene, I edit quite a lot out, okay? You get the sanitised version. Oh my God. Are we done on the...
Yeah, so let me just summarise for me, what have we discussed? Because I'm going to have to make the podcast all about this.
All right, well...
Is it endless fascination? Is that the topic?
Well, it is endless fascination, yes. And it's about how you're much more likely to do the work that you need to become confident and competent in your chosen field if you are fascinated, deeply fascinated, endlessly fascinated by the topic itself.
So it's 10,000 hours in endless fascination, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 10,000 hours.
I might call this week's episode 10,000 hours of endless fascination, because then we've got some nice keywords in.
Yeah, absolutely nice. And about how you can very swiftly become an expert by studying a very tight topic like Zulus rather than just African tribesmen.
Right, moving swiftly along, do you have a word of the week?
I do, and it's not very characteristic. Again, it's beauty. Because every time we go for a walk here, we are just stunned by how beautiful it is here. And I'm not saying that, England isn't beautiful in lots of places, and I'm not saying that Shoreham wasn't beautiful. I mean, just the river shots alone, show how beautiful it is. But there's something about the built-upness there that makes it less beautiful to me. And I think that's what I'm loving here, is the fact that it's not very built up at all. And the mountains are so close to the sea. I think that's a rather unique thing about this place as well. So beauty makes me happy.
Okay, very good. And mine is not a characteristic choice of word by Judith Morgan either. Mine is mistake. Mistake as in what human beings make. Did you see or hear about the debacle at the end of the Oscars?
I did, yeah. Didn't someone read that?
No, I tell you, it's fascinating, because I read this article last week and I thought, oh God, I'd love to do that job. There's a man and a woman who are both partners of PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the 5 biggest firms of accountants in the world. And they're presumably in the LA branch. And they humanly, well, they have a lot of help from human beings and computers, but they end up with special briefcases which have all of the envelopes in, and it's duplicated. So she's got a set and he's got a set, and they go to the Oscars in separate cars in case anything happens to either of them. And one of them's on one side of the stage and one of them's on the other side of the stage. So basically it's as ironclad as it could possibly be, and it can't go wrong. But it went wrong. Because what they did was they gave out the duplicate copy of the second to last envelope to poor old Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway from Bonnie and Clyde, who just looked like a couple of old age pensioner idiots, quite frankly, and they had to be apologised to as well. But they gave the Oscar to the wrong winner, and I'm going to tell you more about this story and who or what's impressed in a minute. But the point is that human beings, even PricewaterhouseCoopers, make mistakes, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, exactly. Less likely to make a mistake if you spent 10,000 hours studying it, though.
Well, it was ghastly, because I spent 10,000 hours sitting up until 5:30 in the morning, but still, human beings make mistakes, and let us forgive them, for ourselves and them, for that.
Okay, so we're on to project updates, which I have prepared in advance, dear listener.
Oh my God!
I know. Where is Nicola? What have
you could knock me down with a feather.
No, I was awake at 5:45. So
I saw that. You were PMing me, weren't you?
I was, yes. I just thought I've just got to. I might as well do the prep. So what I've done is I've gone and looked at Google. Google has. Oh, not very exciting, only 63 unique visitors to the site this month. But I thought to myself, let's just look and see where we were last year. Because it's not just about looking at how far you've got to go, it's about looking at how far you've come to. And Google's got a really nice little thing which says compare to previous period and compare to previous year. So when I compared to the previous year, I saw that we were up 50% on last year. So our visitors are up 50%. This is me putting a positive spin on the low numbers.
That is a positive spin, but actually visitors or unique visitors to our website is not really something that we're bothered about, is it?
No, not at all.
No.
So, but then looking at the 30-day improvement, we're up 8%.
Okay.
30 days, so that's rather good too.
Indeed.
And then I went to Libsyn and I looked, and I was struck by a number. basically we're getting between, on average, 60 to 100 downloads a day. And I thought to myself, per day, Judith, that's, okay, between 60 and 100 is 80. Let's say 80, average. 80 people a day are downloading this podcast.
I think that makes it the most successful thing you and I have ever done.
It is right now, yes.
Well, if 80 people are in our orbit every day, that's a significant number.
It is. And when you think that it's between, now here's another one, right? Let me say it slowly so you get the full import of this. Between 1,600 and 2,600 people download this podcast a month. Something that we spend an hour doing, and then another, you do the show notes and I do the picture and then the editing. Let's say an average of 2,000 people a month download this podcast.
I just make sure that makes sense. Hold on a second, Nicola. 2,000 divided by 30. 66. Yes, it does make sense. Well done.
God, you never get anything past.
Well, it would have been awful if you'd given me two contradictory statistics. Not because I would notice, but because the listener would notice. You didn't. Yeah. They bear each other out, which is good news, Nicola.
Yeah. And then the 1 month trend is upward, and the 3 month trend is upward.
Oh, lovely! Gently upward curve. That's my favourite thing at the moment. Yeah.
I haven't looked at Bush Crew. I just didn't have time.
Doesn't matter. Like what you've told me. That's good.
Between 5:45 and 12 o'clock. I haven't.
Yes, I like what you've told me. Now, I took Yvonne away from you about who or what's impressed. Do you want to talk about Yvonne, or do you want to find something else? Or?
I've got something else to talk about.
Yes, go for it.
Deeply impressed with her authenticity on sharing on Facebook.
Yeah, she is a total open book, Yvonne, and that's what makes her story so good, isn't it? She's so brave in that sharing.
In some way, Facebook's brilliant for that because you could just put it out there and everyone knows at once. It's like when Steve died. Everyone knew. I didn't have to tell everyone over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to tell everyone over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Read the blooming post.
Yeah.
The other thing is she's had nearly 250 comments on that post.
Oh, good for her, yeah.
So, and lots of people being quite critical.
Yes, some, I agree. And I noticed she ignored one of those. Good on her, I ignore those as well.
That's all you're going to do with trolls.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's impressed me about her, apart from all of this that we've said, is the fact that she's now launching a retreat for women who want to be inspired or inspirational and and she's deliberately doing it with no. Yeah. She's highly technical.
I saw her brilliant. So if you're interested, talk to me about it. I'm not doing a web page or a website or a blog or any traffic generation. I saw it. Brilliant. Refreshing, isn't it?
And it's interesting that I should be impressed by that.
Yeah.
She's really just going straight.
Because it's like it's out.
Yeah.
In itself makes.
Yeah, we just lost the internet a little bit for a moment, but I can hear your birdies again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Yvonne,
newsworthy.
You've impressed both of us. Now, what's impressed you then?
Well, it's back to the Oscars again. So we're on stage at the end. We're all knackered, and the wrong film's been announced as best film, and they're all on stage celebrating. And suddenly these people come on. Oh shit! We've announced the wrong film. And the three producers of the wrong film are mid-acceptance speech when one of them catches on to the fact, Jordan Horowitz, his name is, he catches on to the fact that it's not his film and he's going to have to give up his Oscars and give them away to the other film. And he was just so elegant in it. As soon as he called them our friends at Moonlight, which is the other film. We've been on the you guys, you've won, we haven't won. Now, his two partners were a bit grumpy about it, and there were some long faces on stage. But he grabbed hold of the situation, because there was all this confusion and bumbling accountants and headsets and Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty looking like a couple of old age pensioners. He got it. He saw it, he got it, and he gave up. He was so elegant. Straight away, he turned it around and said, we win, you win, doesn't matter, we all win. It's yours. Come on up. And he had to take his team aside. But I've always thought I'd be a good producer, film producer. It's an interesting job. It's basically you bring it alive. But he just demonstrated the most fantastic leadership qualities and a generosity. Imagine I give you a prize, Nicola, then I take it away. In the full view, and I think it's like billions of people watch that show.
Cameras.
How could you A, work out what was going on, and B, be generous about it? But he was. It's just, he's my hero of the week.
Well, I might have to go and watch it and blub right the way through it now because it sounds amazing. You're right. That's absolutely leadership quality, isn't it?
I mean, somebody said to me, it's if you can keep your head, but all about it losing theirs. Well, that's what everybody else was losing their head. This man saw it, got it, and took the moral high ground and was so generous. And, all him and his two colleagues were clutching their Oscars, making their speeches. And he said, no, got to take them away. It's not us, it's them. I mean, it was, and he just, in the moment, with no rehearsal and no, this never happened before, not for Best Film. You could not have seen that coming, and yet he totally shone in that moment. Yeah,
he owned it.
He did, but also he was just so generous. It's like he was immediately able to switch into celebrating the success of this much smaller almost indie film that didn't have his budget, anything. He was just awesome.
Well, he started somewhere, and he must have felt for them.
Well, I think he would. The thing about these awards is they're all on the road for 6 months promoting their films. They've been with each other in the same hotels. They're in the same industry. They've got so much in common. But still, you still want yours to win.
Yeah.
And you're told you've won, but actually you haven't. You've come second. We've got to take you. So you've had that thrill. I mean, now, sorry, you thought you came first in the 100 metres, but you didn't. You've been, eliminated. We're going to give the prize to number 2. I don't think I could cope with that. I think I'd be quite grumpy.
Well,
wouldn't you? I mean, it's the culmination of years of work, and you've won the big one. Oh no, sorry, you haven't.
No, you didn't. No. Right, well, I'm off to watch that now because I haven't really twigged what's been going on.
Okay, his name is Jordan Horowitz. Okay, he's the guy he's the hero of the week.
Well, perhaps we can find a YouTube clip and to embed it.
I'm sure you will. Yes, I'll have a go at that. Well done.
Well, give me a shout if you need help.
Yeah, I think I can do it.
Okay, fantastic episode this week. Thank you very much. And if any of our listeners have got a client challenge of the week they'd like us to tackle, we would be delighted. It needs to be something that's going to be of interest to the 2,000 odd people that listen to this podcast every month. But we'd love to hear from you. So just let us know ping us on Facebook or send us an email. Nicola at ownitthepodcast.com. Speak to you later then.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Gotta take it on my way. It's a brand
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.